Welcome, everyone, to the Monday edition of the Recruiting Blitz on Blitz Sports Radio. I'm D Squared. I hope you had a great weekend and had a chance to spend some quality time with your mother. Mother's Day this past weekend. Had a great time and a great dinner. Give a shout out to Top of the River over in Guntersville. Had some great food and quality time with my mother and father. And it was great to see them this past weekend over in the beautiful city of Guntersville on the lake. But it was also a great weekend, as we're going to have some things to talk about and break down here on the Recruiting Blitz. And a little bit later, we're going to talk to Jimmy Stein of BamaInsider.com, as the University of Alabama has finished off a very fruitful, in my opinion, and we'll see. I mean, obviously in the transfer portal, sometimes it giveth with Jamison Williams a couple of years ago. Henry To'oTo'o for a couple of years was really good. But it can also taketh away, as Tyler Harrell and even Eli Ricks were not what they were expected to be. But Alabama ends up adding 5 pieces in the transfer portal, and we saw a couple of them in the spring. C.J. Dupree got a little banged up, but he's the tight end from Maryland, and then Trez Marshall, who I think shown quite well at the Mike linebacker spot, and can also play the will as well, coming over from Georgia. To be added to that inside linebacker room. And then, of course, they've been busy the last, couple of weeks since spring ended, 2 or 3 weeks. When you talk about Tyler Buckner from Notre Dame at the quarterback spot, to add to the depth there in the competition. And then, really, in the last week, Trey Amos, one of the top corners on the market from the University of Louisiana Lafayette. And just this past Friday, Jalen Key from UAB, who the 6'2", 210-pounder, that he's a 6th-year guy, safety, being added to the room. Really, and it also helps Alabama from a depth standpoint with the 2 additions in the secondary, because Traquan Fagans, the rising redshirt freshman, decides to transfer. He played the star position. He's now at USC, along with his brother, now the 2025 recruit, Antoine Fagans. They're both going to play for Lincoln Riley, over at Southern California. And then Jarquez Robinson, who was a graduate really and a redshirt junior, never played a lot except for special teams. He has transferred to play for Coach Prime over at Colorado. So good luck to those young men. But the University of Alabama adding 5 guys, and we'll talk about that with Jimmy Stein, and probably even some baseball as well, as the University of Alabama 5-2 since they got rid of Brad 2 times Bohannon, and playing much better baseball under Jason Jackson, Matt Rita, and Hunter Morris and that coaching staff, as they go over to College Station, Texas. They lose a tough one, 11-5, a little bit of a home run derby in that game on Friday night, but then Saturday and Sunday, 23-1 domination, as Alabama was able to just destroy a pretty good Texas A&M team, who had just won 2 out of 3 at Blue Bell Park against the Florida Gators last week. Alabama lays waste to them the last 2 games. The Bats really coming alive, as Alabama is able to run rule Texas A&M, 12-1 on Saturday in 7 innings, and then turn around and win 11-0 thanks to Athens' Jacob McNary with the best start of his career. 7 innings, 101 pitches, 9 strikeouts. And then Alton Davis, the second, ends up pitching the last 2 innings. Alabama led by the 3 home runs on the weekend from Andrew Pinckney, who now has 14 on the year, and then 3 more from Colby Shelton, who now has a freshman record 19 for the University of Alabama. What a freshman year he has had. 19 home runs, 39 RBIs. And Alabama's lineup clicking. Tommy Seidel with a big weekend as well, a huge grand slam in Game 3 to get them off to a 5-0 start. Seidel now hitting I think he's got 8 home runs on the year, 36 RBIs, but hitting a team-high 357 is the graduate student from Harvard, and he has had a heck of a senior year. So far, Alabama now 13-14 in the SEC, but more importantly, 35-17 overall. And they've got the Ole Miss Rebels coming to town, who are smarting after they had their house burned down by the red-hot Auburn Tigers. As now 30-19-1 is Butch Thompson's team, as they continue their hot streak of the last 3 weeks. They have a a game rained out on Thursday and then play a doubleheader on Friday and sweep that doubleheader 16-4 and then 8-2, and then whitewash the Rebels 13-5 in Game 3. So Auburn red hot right now, Alabama and Auburn, since that series loss to the Crimson Tide in Tuscaloosa. Auburn has not lost a series. They've been red hot. And now LSU has lost 2 straight series as the Mississippi State Bulldogs of Chris Lemonis down 10-4 and then even 13-4 come back and win the game 14-13. Just an amazing comeback in 10 innings as the Bulldogs take 2 out of 3. So right now, LSU really with only Paul Skeens and everything else pitching-wise is not great. As the Tigers can swing the bats, but they're slumping a little bit right now. So it's going to be interesting to see if they can get, going again as Hoover is just around the corner. All series this week will be played Thursday, Friday, and Saturday to give everybody a chance to get ready for Hoover. Alabama is still just playing to continue to try to increase their seed chances and at least be a high 2 seed. They might still have an outside chance to host if they could sweep Ole Miss and do some damage in Hoover, but we'll see. Their RPI right now, I think, is 11, but they've still got some work to do, no question about it. You need to at least win this series over the Ole Miss Rebels, put them out to pasture where they won't make Hoover, and unbelievably, after winning a national championship, just like Mississippi State a year ago, State didn't go to Hoover or the regionals, and it doesn't look like that the Ole Miss Rebels will either, even though Mike Bianco has had a Hall of Fame career, and they won the national title a year ago. But Mississippi State has still got work to do as well. Despite the fact they took 2 out of 3 on the road from LSU, they are going to have to make some hay this weekend at home against Texas A&M to ensure they get to Hoover and have a chance to at least compete, because right now they would not be in Hoover, and they are not, for the second straight year, going to go to the postseason after winning the national title. So Mike Bianco and Chris Lemonis both will be feeling some heat at 2 really of the better baseball jobs in the country, despite their struggles the last 2 years. We know what Mississippi State has done historically, and then what Mike Bianco has done at Ole Miss. But again, you're only as good as your last game, and the Rebels and certainly the Bulldogs have struggled, while Alabama and Auburn are 2 of the hotter teams in the league and are trying to both make strong runs into the postseason. I don't think Auburn can get enough wins to host, even if they swept Missouri. They'd have to almost win the SEC tournament. They just don't have enough wins. They've got 30, but they can be a solid number 2 seed and somebody you do not want to see in the NCAA tournament, because Butch Thompson's group has gone 2 of the last 3 years, and as usual with that excellent coaching staff, despite the fact they lose Tim Hudson, they replace him with Darren Schoenrock. They've had tons of injuries on the pitching mound, but they've now started to figure things out. It's because Butch Thompson's a great coach, and Auburn is a red-hot ball club. Now, for all the success Auburn baseball has had, the softball program had a pretty good run over in Fayetteville, Arkansas, but, did lose a heartbreaker in the semifinals of the SEC tournament, and to South Carolina. And so that was disappointing for them as they lose that game in the 7th inning. And then, shockingly, they're not one of the hosts for the SEC, in the softball tournament. In the NCAAs when the seedings were announced, I thought Auburn would host. I thought they would be somewhere in the 10 to 14 range, and then and be not a national seed to host supers, but be a host program for the first time in a while. They didn't get to host, and to top it all off, they're in the Clemson Regional as the 2 seed, and that matches up with Oklahoma. Oklahoma handled Auburn twice in the regular season, but Oklahoma's handled everybody. Right now, UCLA and Oklahoma are probably the 2 heavy favorites to play for the national championship. Oklahoma, has just been a juggernaut lately, and they're going to be the favorite to win it all again. But Auburn, I thought, really got kind of a raw deal. I thought their softball program would be able to host. Certainly, Tennessee's the number 4 national seed, and shockingly, Alabama's the 5. Montana Fouts will find more out about her injury situation later today. She injured her knee in a game where Alabama was still able to find a way to win against host Arkansas, but lost 7-6 in the semifinals to eventual SEC tournament champion and regular season champion Tennessee, and that's why Tennessee was the number 4 national seed, the highest for the SEC, but certainly still, disappointing that Alabama wasn't, able to secure, from the standpoint of, to win the SEC tournament for the second straight year. But when you think about it in context overall, I mean, Alabama is still able to get the number 5 national seed due to the fact they beat Duke, they beat Florida State. They played the number 2 schedule in the country as far as its schedule strength. They had a number 12 RPI. I was surprised Alabama got the number 5 national seed, which means if they won, they'd also host the Supers at the Rhodes House, which would be against the Evanston Regional and Northwestern. But again, kudos to Patrick Murphy and those young ladies. Now they're just going to be waiting on the prognosis for Montana Fouts because they need Montana Fouts. They lost in the regionals at home last year, and if they're going to win the regional and have a shot in the Supers, they've got to have her, no doubt, because, again, Jayla Torrance pitched okay in the SEC tournament. Same with Alex Salter and Essman, but they're not frontline pitchers like the Montana Fouts, who can be as good as anyone in the country. But again, Tennessee the 4, Alabama the 5, Arkansas and LSU also getting to host in regionals. So but it's just, and Georgia, but it's just surprising that I thought the top 6 would all host, but the only one that did not was the Auburn Tigers. And now they can have a chip on their shoulder, but they got a tough draw going to Clemson and then having to face Oklahoma. But again, Alabama, the number 5 national seed, a little surprising, 40-18 overall. Thought they would host, but I thought it would be 13, 14, 15, 16 range. I wasn't really thinking it'd be 16 against OU, but I thought it might be 13 or 14. But once again, the schedule strength for Alabama comes through, and the SEC gets 12 of their 13 teams in. The only one that did not get in was Mississippi State. Mizzou got into that Norman regional, and so they were they knew early on they were getting in, and then Ole Miss got in very late as well. So. And of course benefited by beating Alabama in the last game in that series in Oxford, Mississippi, coming back from down 4-1. That may have impressed the committee as well. But again, Alabama and Patrick Murphy and then Mickey Dean and Auburn both have a chance to make big runs and postseason runs, but Auburn's will be much more difficult as they will have to beat a tough Clemson team on the road, but then you have to face Oklahoma, and I don't think anyone thinks the Sooners are going to be stopped in their own regional. They've just been rolling, only lost one game all year, and so that was to Baylor. And so Auburn's got a chance to make a run, but I really thought they should have been a host as well, and there should have been 6 hosts from the SEC. And and really they could have hosted instead of Clemson. You would have matched up with Oklahoma, but at least you would have had the regional on your campus for the first time, I think, since 2017. And so I was just disappointed that Auburn didn't get rewarded and the SEC didn't have 6. But happy for Patrick Murphy and those young ladies. It's been a tough kind of up and down year, but certainly they're very capable if they can swing the bats, which I thought that was a bonus in the game against Tennessee. They swung the bats well, scored 6 runs, lost 7-6, had some opportunities, but they need Montana Fouts if they're going to get back to Oklahoma City and have a chance to compete for a national championship with this group that, seems to be taking some strides to get better at the plate at the right time. But they're going to need to continue that and continue to swing the bats. Larissa Pruitt, who made freshman All-SEC from Hartselle, has been really good lately. So we'll see if that continues, no doubt about it. And, of course, Ashley Prongi with 3 home runs in the SEC tournament really swung the bat well. She's going to need to stay hot also. And then we'll see about the Montana Fouts prognosis. But I tell you what, we are going to, be speaking to Jimmy Stein in the next few minutes, no doubt about that. Jimmy is going to give us his thoughts on this Alabama football program and those 5 transfers I talked about. Also, we will hear from Jimmy and get his thoughts on the baseball and softball programs that he follows very closely. Jason Jackson and those guys really doing a nice job. And, Alabama quietly sneaking around as a very solid 35-17 program right now. And, again, not completely out of the conversation of hosting and solidly probably in the number 2 level right now, and probably a high number 2 seed if the tournament started today. So we'll see how many more wins this Alabama team can certainly stack up, and they're going to play Ole Miss Thursday, Friday, and Saturday, and you'll hear those on our sister station, ESPN 97.7 The Zone, in addition to some of that softball as well, as the softball regional will start, I believe, on Friday for the University of Alabama. So, we will let you know the logistics of that as well, and how those broadcasts will be handled on ESPN 97.7 The Zone on our sister station. But I'm going to tell you right now, we're going to take a break here on this Monday morning edition of the Recruiting Blitz on Blitz Sports Radio. And when we come back, we are going to talk to Jimmy Stein, and he is going to give us some thoughts from BamaInsider.com and let us know what he believes this Alabama team can do as far as football-wise. We'll get some thoughts on baseball, and we'll get some thoughts on softball as well from one of the best there is, as Jimmy Stein is with Bama Insider, BamaInsider.com. And then also, before we go, don't forget, we have the great sponsors here on ESPN 97.7 The Zone and on the Blitz Sports Radio with D Squared. We have Alumni Hall, alumnihall.com, who has moved to their new locale at the Bridge Street Town Center, which is just right next to Belk. That will be temporary until they move into their new digs, their even bigger digs, which will be in early August next to Buckle, and they will add Tennessee to the repertoire. But go see Andy and all those great people. They are hiring for the summer, so you can go get you a great job over there at Alumni Hall. And don't forget, this is graduation time. You can get, for any Alabama or Auburn fan on your list over there at Bridge Street at Alumni Hall, you can get your Alabama or Auburn graduation gift. And if you have someone that's a fan of another SEC school, go to alumnihall.com. They have all sorts of, websites for other SEC programs and Southeastern schools in their repertoire. You can look those up at alumnihall.com, and they have very reasonable shipping, and they have a rewards program, the Hall Pass Rewards, that's very fruitful. For every $150, you get 10 free dollars, and you can use those at any time, and you can stack those. So Alumni Hall does a great job, and we appreciate their sponsorship here on the Blitz Sports Radio. And don't forget, later today, the afternoon Blitz with the Bandyman Bailey Lowry and Captain Cool John Abraham. They will be with you from 2 to 4 o'clock as we will continue to have quality sports talk. And we've been going strong since late July, and we want to continue to grow. And, before we know it, it will be a year for the Blitz Sports Radio, and we wouldn't be here without our great listeners and sponsors. And we appreciate you guys for supporting us, and we appreciate Jimmy Stein, who's been with us on several occasions since we began our journey, and he is going to be with us when we return from this break on the Blitz Sports Radio. We're going to talk to Jimmy Stein and talk some Alabama Crimson Tide football and athletics here on this Monday of this edition of the Recruiting Blitz on Blitz Sports Radio. I am D Squared. Stay with us.
TOC Sports has been there for you. Now, you're probably asking yourself, what does that mean? It means for more than 20 years, Alabama's largest orthopedic group has been there providing coverage and care to more schools and student athletes in the Tennessee Valley than any other group. It means whether you are the star football player, the all-region volleyball ace, or someone who hurt their knee in a weekend pickup basketball game, TOC Sports physicians are proud to have the opportunity to care for all your orthopedic needs. It means for parents, coaches, athletes, desk jockeys, or even weekend warriors, TOC Sports physicians continue to meet and exceed the orthopedic and sports medicine needs of our community. But most importantly, during these challenging times, we're here for you now, and will continue to be here. So as long as there are players on the field, games to be played, and contests to be won, the orthopedic specialists from TOC Sports will be ready to help. We don't know what the future holds, but you can count on the TOC Sports team to stay committed to you, so you can stay in the game. Call 256-539-2728 today and ask to see a TOC Sports physician. Check them out online, also Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram.
With us today, Dr. Tracy Lowry of Best Vein Care of Huntsville.
When we evaluate a patient and they indeed have significant venous disease, most third-party payers, private insurance, Medicare, require us to treat every patient conservatively at least 90 days. Conservative treatment includes increasing ambulation, elevation of the legs, and the wearing of compression stockings. It's very common for folks to come see us in March or April wanting to have their veins fixed before they go into swimsuits starting in June. When we see someone in March or April, they're going to require at least 90 days of conservative treatment before we can even go to the insurance carrier to get permission to treat their veins. So if you think you have a venous problem, now is the time to come in and get a free screening so we can determine whether or not you need something evaluated. If you have a vein problem or you think you may have a vein problem, now's the time to contact us at bestveincarehuntsville.com.
Adopt US Kids presents Multiple Choice Parenting.
You're bringing your daughter to her favorite pop star's concert. Do you A, wear earplugs?
Isn't this fun, Dad?
I'll have a soft pretzel.
B, remember the moment with matching concert t-shirts?
That's gonna be $180.
Or we can just take a photo.
C, show her how you used to do concerts.
We're going crowd surfing.
I can't. It's too heavy. Oh my God. Oh.
Or D, just roll with it.
Woo! Justin! Look at us. We're over here.
Justin! OMG! He just looks. I love you, Justin. I love you.
When it comes to parenting, there are no perfect answers. But that's okay, because you don't have to be perfect to be a perfect parent. Teens in foster care will love you just the same.
For more information on how you can adopt, visit adoptuskids.org. A public service announcement from the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, Adopt U.S. Kids, and the Ad Council.
What's the matter, honey? Can't sleep?
Ugh, it's this heartburn. At night, it's the worst.
Heartburn? Again?
Yeah, I'm done with it. I'm going to kick acid with Rolaids.
Rolaids Advanced goes to work instantly for powerful relief of your worst heartburn, bloating, and gas.
Feeling better?
Much better.
That was fast.
Mm-hmm.
Kick acid and gas with Rolaids Advanced.
On this Monday edition of the Recruiting Blitz on Blitz Sports Radio. Appreciate everybody for tuning in as we are getting another great week kicked off. And like I said, we've been rehashing the weekend. It was a good one for Alabama athletics, no doubt about it. The only, little bit of a drawback, and we'll see later today what the long-term prognosis is. Everyone praying for Montana Fouts, who arguably is the best pitcher in the country. Gives Alabama a shot to get back to Oklahoma City in softball, especially with this draw that Alabama was able to, be given as the number 5 national seed. They will be taking on, as we said, LIU, Long Island University, in the first round of the regional at the Rhodes House in Tuscaloosa, and then they will get the winner of the number 2 seed Central Arkansas, the number 3 seed Middle Tennessee. And then they would face the winner of the Evanston Regional, Kentucky from the SEC in that regional, but 38-11 from the Big Ten Northwestern, the host, and will probably be the favorite. But Alabama would host that round if they should be able to, reach these super regionals and host that at the Rhodes House. So we will see, but we're going to talk about the University of Alabama and the great weekend in athletics with our next guest. He's been a frequent one here on the Recruiting Blitz on Blitz Sports Radio. Much like we've been going strong since late July, he's been going strong for the past year as he has taken his career in a new direction, and that is as an insider and analyst for the fastest growing network in the country, which is on3sports.com. He's part of BamaInsider.com, and it's always great to catch up with our next guest, Jimmy Stein, who's been generous enough to join us coming off of this weekend. Jimmy, I hope you had a happy Mother's Day with your family and a great weekend. Welcome back to the Recruiting Blitz. How are you this morning?
Doing great, Drew, and I really appreciate you having me back on the show.
Yeah, I really appreciate your time, man. I know you're a busy guy, and certainly on 3 and Bama Insider's been crammed full of coverage of the University of Alabama, recruiting, baseball, softball, football, everything. And what we're really going to get cranked up with, though, we just mentioned softball. Certainly Coach Patrick Murphy and the ladies were very excited yesterday. I was a little surprised at how that they got the 5th national seed. I felt like Alabama would host for the 18th straight year, but I thought it might be, in the lower, in the second 8, so to speak, around maybe 11, 12, 13, where they wouldn't be set to be a super regional host. But certainly their number 2 strength of schedule, their wins early over Duke, Florida State, some really good teams. They played UCLA very tough, so Alabama able to get some quality wins early and have a 12 RPI that really seemed to matter to the committee, who ranked them right behind Tennessee from the Southeastern Conference. Alabama getting the number 5 national seed. Only issue, though, is the status going forward of Montana Fouts, who's going to be crucial if Alabama wants to potentially reach Oklahoma City again under Coach Murphy after falling short a year ago.
Yeah, Drew, I could see Alabama winning the regional without Montana. I think that could happen. It would be difficult. I mean, when you remove the best player from any team, you've changed the whole team. Now throw in the fact that Alabama's best player is an ace starting pitcher, and the loss would just be immense. And even making it through the regional would be very difficult, but I would say it's doable. But it's extremely hard to imagine Alabama advancing out of a super regional, even hosting, even playing Northwestern, even playing Kentucky. It's harder to imagine Alabama winning that series against that quality of opponent without the number 1 pitcher and best player on the team. So we'll see what the word is from Dr. Kane and from Alabama softball later today. They're in Birmingham this morning, and we'll see. We'll see. I'm optimistic based on what little I know. I'm optimistic, but it may be a situation where there's obviously some swelling, and that's a little concerning.
Yeah, it is, and I was wondering what it was. When I saw the injury. At first, I thought it might be a muscle-type situation, maybe a strain, but Patrick Murphy did at least reveal after the draw was released yesterday that it is a knee, and they were going to see Dr. Kane. So we'll see how severe it is. Could it be a meniscus? We don't know. Certainly hate it for Montana because except for one small time in her career, she's really been remarkably durable. She's certainly thrown over 200 innings this year and has 300 strikeouts. She's meant everything to this team. So you'd like to see her end her Alabama career in the circle, battling with her team. She was certainly very emotional after it happened against Arkansas, but Alabama responded, got that win. And then I thought swung the bats well against a really good Tennessee team, and it's kind of what you referenced, though, Jimmy. If she's limited in any kind of way or if she's not available, they're going to have to swing the bats that way to win this regional coming up in Tuscaloosa this weekend.
Yeah, you can't expect, whether it's Alex Salter, Jayla Torrance, or Lauren Espman in the circle, you can't expect them to throw shutouts. I mean, with Montana, it's a reasonable expectation. No matter who the opponent is, Montana may shut them out, and all you need is the 1 run to win. That's reasonable. That's not a reasonable expectation. Salter, Torrance, and Espman, they all 3 have ERAs in the 2s, which sounds fantastic to those of us who have watched baseball our whole lives, but softball's slightly different sport. ERA in the 2s is fine, actually. It's fine. It's not awesome, but it's fine. But the point being, you have to expect Salter, Torrance, or Espman to give up some runs. So you're going to have to score 4, 5, even 6 runs to win the game. That's been a challenge for Alabama all season long. Alabama ended the season, Drew, 10th in the SEC. There's 13 SEC teams that play softball. Alabama finished 10th in runs scored.
Yeah.
And when it now the premium is on scoring runs, it's going to be difficult. The good news is, I agree with you, Drew. Alabama swung the bat better later in the season, even against good pitching. And I like where Alabama's at offensively based on where they were. There's more girls swinging it well now than there was earlier. But it will be a tremendous challenge without Montana in this regional if she's out.
Yeah, certainly we pray that she's not. And Larissa Pruitt had a really good series, against Ole Miss, and has swung the bat better and made freshman All-SEC playing right field. And Jenna Johnson, tremendous in left. She made some really nice plays, and they need her to swing it well. We know Christian White is a really good defensive center fielder. Now, they've struggled a little bit on the infield defensively, but you've got Kinley Cahalan, you've got Ashley Prongi, who swung it really well. They need Shipman to swing it well this coming weekend, no doubt about it. And Bailey Dowling has really been DHing now, so we'll see how that goes. Emma Broadfoot likely would be at first base. But let's swing it back over to baseball. What a response from this baseball program since all the adversity with the Brad Bohannon dismissal. They take out Vanderbilt first, 2 out of 3. They win a midweek game against Troy on the road, and then they go to Texas A&M. Now, the Friday game was rough. It was 11-5. Holman had an uncharacteristically struggling as far as outing that wasn't strong. He struggled a little bit with a long ball. But Alabama, I thought, still swung the bats pretty well, and then it carried over with their quick start on Saturday. They had to battle some weather then. They got that done in 7 innings, and then kind of a bizarre Sunday where it's off, it's on, it's off, but Alabama gets the game played. It's being reported Greg Byrne pushed to get it played. I'm glad he did, considering that when teams are out of school, you don't have to adhere to the usual Sunday rules. But a huge series win for Alabama heading into the regular season finale at home against Ole Miss. Which was really big, Jimmy.
It really was, and where I, want to bring up about the baseball team is, the theme or the narrative, I should say, that's going on right now is once Brad Bohannon was dismissed, the team really took off. They're 5-2 with a lot of good with several good wins, good conference wins, the wins over Vanderbilt. The team took off after Brad Bohannon was dismissed. I think that sort of looks over the fact that the team was actually pretty good before. They weren't great. They're definitely playing their best baseball of the season right now. That is true. But all season, this team's been pretty good. I go all the way back to the initial series, the initial SEC series, Drew. This team opened up the SEC season on the road at Florida. And in my opinion, Florida may be the best team in the SEC. Now, you ask 6 different people, you're going to get 6 different answers. That's how good the league is. But I think you could make a strong case Florida is the best team in this league. Alabama went on the road. They only won 1, although that's still a big deal. That win over Florida is carrying a lot of weight for Alabama when it comes to the selection show with baseball. But Alabama nearly won the series. They lost. They had a lead in game 2 and blew it. They had a big lead and blew it. And in game 3, they lose by like 1 run. And I knew from that, going all the way back then, Drew, I'm like, this team's pretty good. And I know with all the negativity with Alabama baseball, it's easy to look at the loss column and see that number adding up and going, oh, here we go again. But if you watch the team on a day-to-day basis, realize who some of these wins were against, and the difficulty of the early season schedule, had even the gambling scandal with Brad Bohannon not happened, Drew, I would still be telling people, this is a pretty good team, and they're highly capable, particularly if they somehow get into a regional and get to play non-SEC teams. They've been great in the midweek. They've only lost 1 game in the midweek all year. Their strength of schedule is very, very good. And again, they've done really well in the SEC. If they I think with just 1 win over Ole Miss, they'll finish 500 in the league. And 500 in this league is much different than 500 in any other league. I'll remind everyone listening that last year's national champion finished 14-16 in the SEC. That's how brutal this league is. And for Alabama to be a 500 team in the SEC, you know what that means? That means you're nationally elite if you're 500 in this league.
That is correct, Jimmy. I mean, think about Auburn last year. They got hot at the right time, went to Omaha for the second time in 3 years. Ole Miss was the last team in the field. They win the national championship. The year before, Mississippi State certainly wasn't the last team in the field, but they were a 2. They weren't considered to be a team that was going to win it all, but they did. Ironically, with the strength of this league, Jimmy, there's a very good chance that Mississippi State, for the second straight year, will miss postseason. Ole Miss is already done heading to Alabama, which just kind of shows the strength of the SEC. And I don't think it's completely out of the question. Now, it'll be interesting. I would think Greg Byrne was very aggressive, it's being reported now, to get the game played, Game 3 yesterday, over in College Station to give Alabama a chance to win that series. If they can win this series against Ole Miss and win some games in Hoover, with their RPI, I think their RPI going into today was 11. So say they sweep or win 2 out of 3, win some games in Hoover, their RPI is strong enough they would have a case to host for the first time since 2006.
What an amazing story. I mean, it just boosts the story from special to amazing. If Alabama, who has not been a great team in recent years, I think this would be just the second time they've made the NCAA tournament in about the last 7 seasons. I think 2 for 7 or 2 for 8. So just to make the tournament as a story, then throw in the dismissal of the head coach due to scandal, then throw in how the team got hot after the head coach was fired and the pitching coach was named the interim head coach, and to do it in this league against that sort of schedule. Again, I know people that don't follow SEC baseball devoutly will look at Ole Miss coming in and saying, hey, this is the worst team in the SEC. You should sweep these guys. They're the defending national champions. They're full of good players. Now, they've underperformed most of the season. They're probably, I saw Kendall Rogers, one of the great college baseball experts, say, Ole Miss, no doubt, is the most disappointing team in the country. I get that, but I also get this. They won the national championship last year. They recruit an incredibly high caliber of athlete. Just because they've been underperforming doesn't mean they'll underperform this weekend. So it's still going to be a challenging series because you're playing a very good team. As even with their record, Drew, I would tell you that if Alabama's in the regionals, whether they're hosting or not, they will play a couple of teams that aren't as good as Ole Miss in the regional. So
that's true.
It's tough.
It really is. I mean, just for example, Missouri just swept Georgia, and Ole Miss lost 2 out of 3 at Mizzou, but in the last game they scored 20 runs. So they're very capable of swinging the bats. Gonzalez, their shortstop, is going to be a first-round pick. He's an outstanding player. I still think Bianco's an outstanding coach, and I will say, I agree that Ole Miss has underperformed, but I remember all the way back to 97, and it's funny, this sticks in my head, Jimmy, but this was before Bianco, before Ole Miss was a brand in college baseball. They were not very good. The Alabama team that year, as you remember, went to the finals of the College World Series without their best player, Roberto Vaz, who got hurt before the regional championship game, the regional finals against Southern Cal that year. That was back during 8-team regionals. There was no supers during those days. But Alabama lost 2 out of 3 to Ole Miss, who was not very good. Yeah. So you have to stay focused. You need to at least win 2 games, take 1 game at a time, but certainly still a lot at stake for this Alabama baseball program and for Jason Jackson and these coaches, because if you continue on this hot run, if you win, it certainly makes you attractive to Greg Byrne, who's certainly going to try to make a great hire for this baseball program. But, I mean, in a difficult situation, I got to give Jason Jackson a lot of credit. I've been critical of him as a pitching coach at times, even though I think he's been solid. But as a head coach, he's done a really good job. But I commend the players as well. A lot of experience on this team, and you want them just to keep riding the wave. And so we'll see if they can do that this weekend at Sewell Thomas and then take it on over into Hoover. But certainly proud of these guys, and it's good for Alabama baseball, as you said, have not been in regionals. Like they went, I think, and Coach Wells had 15 years. I think they went 13 times. It's not the case, not been the case lately. So every postseason trip is a good one, and certainly there should be a lot of Bama fans and Auburn fans, because arguably, Jimmy, the 2 hottest teams in the SEC right now are Alabama and Auburn.
Well, the SEC tournament's fun every year. I mean, it's the level of baseball, the number of scouts that are there, but the level of baseball is just insane. The games are fun. Competitors playing for a trophy, and it's even more fun in Hoover when Alabama's not only there but good. and then you can say the same about Auburn. So Alabama, I think, would have a reasonable chance to win the SEC tournament. So does Auburn. I think with Alabama, I'd be a little worried just about the depth of pitching in terms of, they've had injury issues in the rotation, to say the least, where right now, as good as the starting pitching is, two of the guys that you thought would be starters all season long, and Ben Hess and Grayson Hitt, they're not available. Hitt's certainly out for a whole year with Tommy John surgery, and Hess may or may not come back late. However, with losing starting pitchers like that, I mean, it's kind of a domino effect that makes you even more shallow in the bullpen, because now guys are starting that normally might be in the bullpen. So let's see if Alabama's depth of pitching can hold up in the SEC tournament. But I think they have a shot. I know this. I think they swing the bat as well as any team in this league, and Auburn is also playing extremely well. And I wonder what Hoover might look like with an Alabama-Auburn final.
Oh, it'd be crazy. No doubt, it is a great event, and I always enjoy being over there with all the enthusiasm for college baseball in the SEC. But, Jimmy, we're going to finish talking some football. Alabama, I think they're probably done now in the portal. They add 5 guys, and they've had their share of, grand slams or home runs in the portal. Certainly Jahmyr Gibbs becoming a first-round pick, Jamison Williams, they were hugely successful. Henry To'oTo'o, very productive. So they've hit, and Landon Dickerson, let's not forget, LD may be their best portal addition ever when it's all said and done. But they had a couple last year. Eli Ricks wasn't consistent. They never saw Tyler Harrell become just a guy that contributed. But I guess how do you value, or how do you rate the 5 guys now? We saw 2 of them in the spring, but they've been aggressive since April 22nd, and they've added a quarterback in Tyler Buckner, and then now 2 DBs in Trey Amos and Jalen Key. How do you kind of rate their additions in the portal and how they could impact this team starting in the fall?
Yeah, it's different than in the previous years. Now, the portal is still a new thing. I mean, in terms of the transfer portal and how it works and the numbers of players that leave your program and enter, it's still a new thing. We're sort of in year 3 of it. And this is a different group than the first 2. And by that I mean, in the previous 2 cycles, Alabama brought in not just impactful starters, but really good players. I mean, Gibbs, a first-round pick. Tyler Steen, maybe the most underrated player on the team all season long.
Right.
Now a third-round pick.
Mm-hmm.
They bring in at least a couple of impactful starters. I don't know that that's the case with this group, but it's coincidental to me, Drew, that there's 5 of them, because that will make you think of basketball. And with the way Alabama recruits in basketball, sometimes they'll sign a great class where multiple members of the class come in and are immediate starters or immediate contributors and become star players at Alabama. And then other years, you bring in a group and there's just a lot of good players, but they're more role players and depth guys. That's sort of how I see this group. Now, where I could really be off in that analysis is if Tyler Buckner ends up being your starting quarterback.
Right.
If that's the case, then it's really notable that you brought in a starting quarterback in the portal. Now, I don't think that's going to happen in terms of a long-term prediction. I mean, I don't think Tyler Buckner will be the starting quarterback. I think C.J. Dupree, who was brought in from Maryland, I think he will be a first-team tight end and play with the ones.
Mm-hmm.
But he's going to share that position with other players. I think Trez Marshall, the inside linebacker from Georgia, the transfer, I think he may end up starting alongside Deontay Lawson, maybe. But there's also other good players pushing him, like Justin Jefferson, the JUCO, who had a great A-Day,
mm-hmm.
and Jahad Campbell, who the staff is super high on as a young inside linebacker. So Trez may be the starter, or he may be one of a few guys that gets a look at starting an inside linebacker. The 2 DBs that Alabama brought in a week ago, Trey Amos from Louisiana and Jalen Key from UAB, they will push and compete to be starters. Even if they're not, they'll be very valuable depth pieces because Alabama's depth at defensive back is basically all freshmen. And I'm sure that made Coach Saban and T-Rob, the secondary coach, nervous. Now you've at least guaranteed that a couple of guys on the bench will be older, experienced players. Now maybe Amos and Key will be on the bench, or maybe Amos and Key will be on the field, and guys like Christian Story and Malachi Moore will be on the bench, who are experienced veteran players. So I look at this, Drew, like this year they used the portal to build depth at quarterback and tight end and defensive back and inside linebacker, and it wasn't necessarily a cycle in which they brought in impactful starters like we saw in the last two groups.
Well, I think, too, when you bring in Jalen Key and Trey Amos, it also allows you to move Terrion Arnold around and certainly even Malachi Moore. And we saw him have to move around in the A-Day game, and he was impactful as MVP. So he's very experienced, though, and it allows you more versatility for T-Rob in the secondary, Jimmy.
Oh, absolutely. It gives you more options. Alabama will have more options. That's what you're looking for, right, is what are our options? And that's why they're valuable adds, because now you have more versatility. You have two more players. They're older kids. True, they weren't there this spring, and they're going to have to pick up on things quickly over the summer and fall, but older kids are more able to do that with their age, maturity, and experience. So I see them as valuable pieces, but if you're an Alabama fan out there and you see Alabama sign someone from the portal and your expectation is Jamison Williams or Jahmyr Gibbs or even Henry To'oTo'o, I think this is different. I don't anticipate any player that Alabama signed in the portal being an immediate, impactful starter and then a high NFL draft choice. I don't see that, but for Alabama's sake, I hope I'm wrong, and it wouldn't be the first time.
Yeah, no question about it. I mean, we'll see, but certainly I do think it was productive, and now that'll play itself out in the coming weeks, and then and so will the Tyler Buckner scenario in the quarterback saga. And I know it looks as though that certainly he didn't transfer. We understand that now, but that Jalen Milroe, he's been out with some of the receivers working already. They're getting together. It looks like people are working hard. Ty Simpson, there's been some video released of him recovering from his injury. Everybody seems to be responding in a positive way, at least initially.
Well, everyone's got to improve. And even if you'd come out of spring with Jalen Milroe solidly at number one, he would still have a lot of improving to do. Even if it had been Ty Simpson having a great spring and emerging as the starter, he would have a lot of improving to do. These are very young players. Even Buckner, even Milroe, they've started games at the college level, but they're young players. They've started very few. I think Buckner's thrown 120 passes in college football games, and that makes him by far the most experienced of the three. And 120, that's really not a lot. That's just really about four or five games worth now. So that's not a lot of experience, but it's the most that any of the three quarterbacks has. So all three guys need a big summer. They all need to improve no matter where they land on the depth chart. And we'll see. I just base my opinion based on what I saw in the spring games. Mm-hmm. Simpson's performance, Milroe's performance, and Buckner's performance in the Notre Dame spring game. Just my own personal opinion is that particularly when you factor in the thumb injury, I think Ty Simpson was the most effective of the three. I think he's the most talented passer of the three. And I still think Ty is ultimately going to win this job. But what I don't know is the win. I mean, I hate to say it. I don't know that he's going to start Middle Tennessee or Texas. I just feel like ultimately Ty Simpson's going to win the quarterback job at Alabama this fall. But either one of the other two guys could win it. I certainly don't rule that out in any way. It's going to be a really interesting fall camp for sure.
It really is. Great stuff as always from Jimmy Stein, BamaInsider.com, part of On3 Sports. Jimmy, we appreciate the time. Let everybody know how to connect with you guys. Yeah,
the Alabama site on On3, Bama Insider. You can find me there on message board just about all day or all night long. Got great recruiting coverage from Andrew Bone and Joseph Hastings. And we got some big changes coming up. Everybody should be excited about. That's happening in another few weeks. So a lot of exciting things at BamaInsider.com.
Yeah, no doubt. Well, appreciate it, man. Thank you for the time. Have a great week.
Thanks so much, Drew.
That's Jimmy Stein. We're going to go on a break and wrap up this Monday edition of the Recruiting Blitz on Blitz Sports Radio. I'm D Squared.
The tech show's on this month. You know, I was thinking of looking at home security systems.
Oh, cool. I'll go with you. We're looking for more home security ideas, too. That's why I called Budget Blinds.
Budget Blinds?
Look at this.
A remote for the blinds.
Yep, motorized.
Okay, well, that's beyond cool. I love it. But what does it have to do with home security?
Oh, they also come with a timer. The blinds and drapes open themselves in the morning, close in the evening.
Oh, so it looks like somebody's home even when you're not.
Exactly, and I saved a bunch of money. Sally saved a bunch of money.
Ha, but you'll take the credit.
Yeah.
My brother, the tech genius.
Thanks, man.
Now give me that remote.
Budget Blinds motorized window coverings are the ultimate in luxury, and during the Luxury Within Reach event, they're even more affordable. The more you buy, the more you save, with savings up to $2,000. Hurry and call 855-BUDGET-BLINDS now before this offer ends, or go online to budgetblinds.com. Don't miss out. Call 855-BUDGET-BLINDS now. Offer good on select products at participating independently owned and operated franchises. Restrictions may apply. Ask for details.
I'm a firefighter.
A teacher.
I'm a farmer.
I'm a barber.
A waitress.
A mom. We're all part of your community. Every day we move in and out of each other's busy lives.
It's easy to take for granted all the little moments that make up our everyday.
Some are good,
others not so much.
But that's life. It's when you experience a moment of uncertainty.
Something or someone's behavior that doesn't seem quite right.
These are the moments to take a pause.
Because if something doesn't feel right, it's probably not.
It's not about paranoia
or being afraid.
It's about standing up and protecting our communities.
One detail at a time.
Because a lot of little details can become a pattern.
We
trust our instincts.
Just like you should.
Because only you know what's not supposed to be in your everyday.
So protect your everyday.
If you see something suspicious, say something to local authorities.
Rambo Marine in Hazel Green is your one-stop shop for all things boating. Whether you are ready to surf with the newest Malibu wake boat or cruise in a Cobalt or Barletta pontoon, we have a boat ready for you and your family. Rambo Marine provides exceptional service second to none, so that you are ready to hit the water in no time. Stop by Rambo Marine today. We know boats.
Welcome back. We are wrapping up this Monday edition of the Recruiting Blitz on Blitz Sports Radio. Huge thanks to Jimmy Stein, always generous with his time. We talk some Alabama softball as they are the number 5 national seed, but of course awaiting the medical results and what's going to happen with the long-term prognosis of Montana Fouts. Is she going to be available for the postseason? The All-American, one of the best pitchers really in Crimson Tide history and SEC and softball history. Just a tremendous young lady who's had a great career at the University of Alabama. We'll see. Hopefully she'll be able to finish it in the circle, but we'll find out later about that. This Alabama team getting to host the regional, as we said, is the number 5 national seed. Baseball program continuing to roll. They whitewashed Texas A&M the last 2 games as they're able to dominate and win that series yesterday, 11-0 over A&M. Great job by, well, first of all, the grounds crew and all the folks around A&M to get that field playable. But for Alabama and the A&M able to finish the series, again, the rules are a little different at the end when both teams are out of school. They can play a little bit later on a Sunday, so they get the game in, which has made it worthwhile for everyone. And congrats to Alabama on handling that series. Auburn with a sweep over Ole Miss. They are very hot under Butch Thompson right now. Their softball program, like I say, a little shockingly, not a national seed, but certainly have a good shot at postseason. And 12
teams from the SEC. All of them but Mississippi State making it in the postseason. Good stuff from Jimmy on baseball. Good stuff also on the football program and the transfer portal. Everybody, don't forget the Bandyman, Bailey Lowry, Captain Cool, John Abraham from 2 to 4 on the afternoon Blitz later this afternoon. And as we said, download our app, the Google Store, the Apple Store, the Blitz Sports Radio app, and join us tomorrow at 9 a.m. Everybody have a great rest of your Monday, everyone. We'll talk to you on Tuesday.